Hey, soul survivors, we're going to talk about what exactly is gaslighting. We're going to have some examples and also cognitive dissonance. So gaslighting, this is a form of emotional manipulation. Narcissists love to use that. And that's where a person doing the gaslighting tries to make the victim doubt their own perceptions and memory. And it can also lead to that crazy making. The gaslighter might deny that certain events occurred, or they might twist the victim's words or actions in such a way that it makes them seem crazy or unstable. The goal of gaslighting is to make the victim question their own sanity, and they become more dependent on the gaslighter for validation and approval. It can be extremely harmful and insidious form of abuse, and is often difficult for the victim to even recognize what's happening and to break free from the gaslighter's control. So I have 5 examples for you to help kind of understand. So number 1, denying something that the victim knows to be true. So for example, if the gaslighter says something hurtful to the victim and then denies ever saying it, even though the victim clearly remembers the conversation. You will see this often with narcissists. And for the second one, they use the victim's words against them. The gaslighter might twist the victim's words or actions to make them seem crazy and unstable. That's why we start feeling and acting that way. For example, if the victim expresses concern about the gaslighter's behavior, the gaslighter might say something like, "You're always so paranoid or irrational." They don't address the issue at hand. And then they put blame on you and make you question, am I paranoid? Am I being irrational? And the subject never gets handled anyways, and it just leaves you in a bad state of mind. So number 3, they love to blame the victim for their own behavior. The gaslighter might try to make the victim feel responsible for their own abusive behavior. So an example, the gaslighter hits the victim. Then they might say something like, "You made me do it. If you hadn't pushed my buttons, I wouldn't have lost control." And they should be in control of their own actions. Making the victim, number 4, doubt their own memory. The gaslighter might try to make the victim doubt their own memory of the events. So as an example, if the victim remembers a conversation differently than the gaslighter does, the gaslighter might say something like, "You must be remembering it wrong. You always have such a bad memory." So they make you question your thought processes. Withholding information is number 5, where the gaslighter might withhold information, and omission of facts is also goes along with lying. And so they withhold information from the victim to keep the victim in the dark about important details. And this can make the victim feel confused, disoriented, and that'll make them more susceptible to the gaslighting. So as an example, the gaslighter might say, "You don't need to know about that. You're better off not knowing." And they just have really poor communication, makes you wonder, what exactly is it that I don't know? Just causes destruction in the relationship. So what does this gaslighting do to the victim's brain? And it can have a profound effect within a victim's brain, causes significant emotional and psychological distress. So cognitive dissonance, we'll talk more about that. But for number 1, it can create a sense of cognitive dissonance in the victim, as their own perceptions and memories are constantly being challenged and contradicted. This can lead to confusion, self-doubt, sense of unreality. Number 2, anxiety and depression. A lot of us go through this, and it can last for a very long time. Gaslighting can cause the victim to feel anxious, depressed, overwhelmed. They may feel like they can't trust their own thoughts or feelings, and they may be constantly on edge, waiting for the next attack. So number 3, hypervigilance. And we got to be careful not to bring this into the next relationship that we go through. The gaslighting can make the victim hypervigilant, constantly scanning the environment for signs of danger. They may be hyper alert to the gaslighter's moods and behaviors, trying to anticipate their next move. A lot of times you start walking on eggshells during that time. And number 4, loss of self-esteem. It can erode the victim's self-esteem and sense of self-worth as they begin to question their own competence, intelligence, and even their sanity. And for the 5th one, we have trauma, and can lead to CPTSD. Gaslighting as a form of emotional abuse has long-lasting effects on the victim's mental health. It will lead to symptoms of CPTSD, such as flashbacks, nightmares, avoidance behaviors, and it can be extremely damaging and destructive. It's emotional manipulation. So what exactly is this cognitive dissonance? That's a psychological term that refers to the mental discomfort, also possibly psychological stress that can occur within a person who holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, values, or when their beliefs are not in line with their behavior. So as an example, a person who believes that, let's say, smoking is harmful to their health, but they continue to smoke, they might experience some cognitive dissonance. They are holding two contradictory beliefs at the same time. Smoking is harmful, and some feel that it's acceptable. It might calm you down, things like that. So it causes your brain to go, what are the positives? What are the negatives? And it can cause discomfort, anxiety, and a sense of psychological stress. So to reduce it, people often try to rationalize or justify their beliefs or behaviors in order to make themselves seem more consistent. So as an example, in the smoker, they might say to themselves, I know it's bad for me, but it helps me relax. It helps me cope with stress. And by doing this, they can reduce the psychological discomfort caused by the conflicting beliefs. Cognitive dissonance can also occur when a person's beliefs or values conflict with their own actions. As an example, a person who values honesty but tells a lie may experience cognitive dissonance. They may rationalize the lie by telling themselves that it was for a good cause and that it wasn't really a lie after all. So it's a positive motivator for change. People are often motivated to reduce the psychological discomfort that is caused by conflicting beliefs or values. And some examples of cognitive dissonance in an abusive relationship. We have number one, believing that the abuser's behavior is not acceptable, but staying in the relationship. The victim often recognizes that the abuser's behavior is wrong and that they should leave, but they might feel conflicted that leaving isn't what they want because they still love the abuser. They fear for their safety or fear financially or emotionally dependent on them. So number two, they will hold on to positive memories while experiencing abuse. So the victim holding on to these memories in the positive light, such as when they were kind and loving, while also experiencing the abuse, can create conflicting beliefs on what exactly is going on. What is our person that we're with? What's this relationship all about? So the third one, blaming oneself for the abuse. Often us victims, we tend to believe sometimes that we deserve the abuse and that somehow we're responsible for the abuser's behavior. We can't be responsible for other people. There are things that come up in relationships. You can talk through them. You can apologize. Nobody is perfect, but people need to do their best to treat others the right way. And when it gets abusive and ongoing and constant, that we sometimes will use cognitive dissonance to justify why we stay with somebody who's just hurting us and making our life miserable. So number four, believing the abuser will change. We can't change anybody but ourselves. And same with our person. They're the only ones who can change it. And a lot of times narcissists don't want anything to do with that. They're happy with what they're doing because it suits them. So the victim may believe that the abuser will change, but despite evidence, to the contrary, this can create a conflict between their belief in the abuser's potential and the recognition of the abuse. They might have potential, but are they going to achieve it? So it can create a lot of significant psychological stress, emotional turmoil, and make it difficult to leave or even seek help or guidance through this time. So over time, this cognitive dissonance will contribute to feelings of confusion, lowered self-esteem, and also increased sense of helplessness. So how do we stop cognitive dissonance? It's challenging. There are things that need to be done to overcome it. It involves changing one's beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, and some strategies that might help. For number one, you can identify the source of this cognitive dissonance. Try to see what is causing it. This can help you better understand the nature of the conflict and how to address it. Reevaluate your own beliefs and values. Take a step back, reflect on these beliefs and values that you have. Consider whether they are truly important to you, whether they align with your behavior. And if not, it might be time to reevaluate and adjust your beliefs and values. So changing our behavior, sometimes changing our own behavior, can reduce the cognitive dissonance. So as an example, if you believe that smoking is harmful to your health, but you continue doing it, quitting smoking can help you align with your own personal beliefs and live your life to how it should be on your beliefs. Seek social support by talking to friends, families, and possibly a therapist. Comment below if I can help you with something. And sometimes just a little outside help to process these conflicting beliefs can provide the support that we need through this time. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is extremely important in the healing process. There are mindfulness practices such as meditation, deep breathing, and it can help you become more aware of your thoughts and feelings when you slow things down, take a breath, let it process, and it'll help reduce the psychological discomfort, because it can be quite discomforting when you're utilizing cognitive dissonance. So overall, reducing cognitive dissonance requires a willingness to be open-minded, reflective, and also willing to change, to align within our beliefs. It does take time, effort, and sometimes support is helpful, but working through it will help improve your mental health and well-being. There's a lot of things that we can do, the power that we have, positive affirmations and a different outlook and taking our power back. I just saw a post on Facebook. This lady is borderline, and she kind of lashed out at her friend saying, if I'm setting boundaries, if you don't like it, you can go. Kind of like people say I have a bad attitude. I don't have a bad attitude. I'm setting boundaries. And if you look deep in the way people word things, she's like, you can leave. And she can leave too. So she renders herself helpless, and she's not. So I just think it's interesting the way people word things. She wants others to change for her. And I get it. Sometimes relationships are difficult. There's things we don't like about people, but if she doesn't like them, she's asking them to change. And she has the power to leave. It's good to set boundaries. It is good to set boundaries. But like I said, she is borderline, has a different way of thinking about things that, there is some grace that we have to give people, but the things that don't work for us, don't align with our beliefs, we're not powerless to the other person to decide if they leave or not. So just a perspective. Lots of love to you guys. And relationships are difficult, but the relationship with yourself is worth working on every day. See you soon.